Happy Monday, everybody. Monday starts the week, and we are here to make your week a profitable one through the props betting market. Welcome to Prop It Up. We're going to be breaking down the Monday night football game between the Vikings and the Bears from a props betting perspective. Joining me, as always, my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. Andrew, we've got an amazing special that we're going to get to here in just a minute, celebrating Cyber Monday in Wager Talk fashion, giving out a huge deal. We'll get into that. But first off, let's just get right into it. Let's start talking about the Vikings and the Bears, and we're going to start with the passing props. We got Josh Dobbs. We got Justin Fields, obviously quarterbacks who I think of rushing first off. But passing props, did you find anything that you really liked for passing props in this one?
Andy, I'm actually going to go ahead and take Dobbs over the 21.5 pass completions here. I understand what you're saying there about him and his legs and being able to utilize the run game for him, and a little bit more than Kirk Cousins was, that's for sure. But as I often say, especially when we do these videos on Mondays, kind of correlates with how good a team is against the run, how bad they are against the run, is how I feel about what the other team's going to do as far as their passing situation goes. In Chicago, right now, ranking number one on their rushing defense. So I think the pass attempts numbers should be up for Dobbs. And looking at this team in general with the Bears, they have the 27th worst allowed completion rate in the entire NFL. Despite not getting their superstar back, there's a lot of weapons for him to throw to. And I feel like he has been able to make some big plays, but if you look at the volume of his throws, they're not really all going deep. There's a lot of short passes. They're taking a long time to march the field, but I don't think the Vikings are caring right now because they're looking pretty good with Dobbs under center. And it seems like his pass completion number has gone up the more and more games and the more time he's had with this offense and to get used to the systems. I'm on a roll right now, Andy, with the INT props, so I'm going to keep it going. And I'm going to take Justin Fields to get an INT, and you're getting plus money on this one. A lot of the ones we've talked about recently, you're laying some juice here on it, but after a decent start, you've seen him 5 of his last 7 starts overall. He's thrown a pick, man. And I think that we're going to see him have to throw the ball. I trust the Vikings to put up some points here. And, I think that you've talked about it a bunch, and we'll talk about it in a few moments, but he only really has one guy to throw to. And when he throws to anybody else, it's kind of a huge question mark. So a plus money on a guy to throw a pick, I think that's a good one. But I'm really interested in that completions prop there for Dobbs, especially with how great the run defense has been for the Bears recently.
I'm with you on Dobbs, and I went just a little bit of a different route. I like this over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 130. Plus money on this prop is fantastic. So I went back and looked. So in games that Justin Fields started and finished, because there was a game against the Vikings where he got hurt, didn't even finish the first half. So he has started and finished 6 games. 5 quarterbacks have thrown for 2 or more touchdowns in those games. Like with Justin Fields, the Bears can put up points. And as you mentioned, this pass defense is not very good. Only Baker Mayfield went under 1.5 passing touchdowns, and he still had 1. Everyone else has had 2 or 3. And the Bears have given up the second most passing touchdowns in the league with 22. So you can absolutely score on them through the air. You did a great job mentioning how good the rushing defense is. So if I'm getting any quarterback to throw 2 touchdowns against this Bears pass defense, I'm going to take it, especially at plus 130. So my favorite passing prop is absolutely Dobbs to throw over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I couldn't quite get to the window with anything on Justin Fields. I thought the books did a pretty good job nailing all of his props. I couldn't find any passing prop value in there. So it sounds like you and I are kind of all over Josh Dobbs in this one for sure. So let's hope for a nice passing attack from Minnesota. Guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, please. It really helps us out. And, of course, tell us your best bet that you got going for Monday night. We had a really, really good weekend of props. It felt like most of the big-name guys got over. I know Tyreek Hill did a good job for you. Andrew, you talked about him scoring a touchdown. I talked about Tim Boyle throwing a touchdown. Garbage time still counts. Garbage time counts, baby, in the props world. So, we've had a lot of really good success on our props on this show. So let us know what you like in the comment section and hit the like button. Let's go to rushing props. Now, here's where we could have quite a few. We got a lot of running backs. We got 2 quarterbacks that run a lot. So what did you like for rushing props in this one?
Yeah, so I like Khalil Herbert under his rushing, but I more so like the rushing plus receiving. And what I've noticed, Andy, with myself with these rushing plus receiving combo bets, as we've discussed throughout the show this year, I don't really play them very often, but when I am doing it now, it's mostly for the unders. And the reason being is because he's mostly getting involved in the rushing game, right? He's not really averaging that. He's barely scraping by with receiving yards. A lot of his average is being pushed up because of earlier on in the season and not what we're seeing right now. He's been upgraded due to injury, so he is kind of the lead guy for tonight. But I feel like that has something to do with the fact that his number is 53.5 for the rushing. And we're getting a really good number as well with the rushing plus receiving. And what I like about taking unders in situations like this, they have a quarterback that likes to run too. So between a few other options, the quarterback themselves, and then I believe that Fields will be having to throw the ball quite a bit as well. I just don't think the reps will be there. You know, I think he'll have to reach like 15, 16 attempts in order to go over this number. And then if you chalk on the receiving yards as well with it, I feel like you really put yourself in a good situation. Talking about some of these running backs as well, I think that Alexander Mattison actually could go over. He's someone that I've gone and talked bad about. I've talked about how he's just been so inconsistent no matter how many carries he gets. But the fact of the matter is he's getting a ton of carries. He's getting a ton of attempts. And although Dobbs has been, come in and actually been a quarterback that likes to run, so you'd think it would take things away from the running backs, I feel like it's actually helped Madison. I feel like it's actually improved his game. I feel like that, it's opened things up for him in certain ways. And his number is just 43.5. And that number has just been significantly dropped more and more and more every week. So I feel like I'm kind of buying low on it. And I actually want to go to the under on Justin Fields. I think that this kind of, to me, is kind of where we're buying low and selling high in certain situations. And I know that he's gone over this number a ton of times and he has the capability of it, but there's lots of guys that have the ability to be in the run game tonight. I talk about Khalil Herbert going under his. I also think that number is just a little bit too big for Fields as well at the 55.5. So I think they're going to have to throw the ball quite a bit, which is kind of the reason why I took the interception prop. I don't have any passing props for Fields, but I like the unders here, but especially the rushing plus receiving is really good. Because especially, Andy, when these guys aren't receiving the ball, you're pretty much just getting an extra 15 yards on their under on rushing, which I like quite a bit.
I love that approach. Yeah, it is great when you got a guy that doesn't catch very many passes and just take the under rushing plus receiving. You get a nice little discount. I like where you're going because I couldn't get too many overs on the yards, but I like a couple of rush attempts props because I think they're going to get opportunity. I just don't know if they're going to have success. And I like Madison over 12.5 rush attempts. He's had 16 or more in 3 out of 4 games. Last week, he outrushed Ty Chandler 18-10, and that was a really close game. So without Cam Akers, they seem to go back. They've seemed to gone back to Madison, and they trust him. You just got to keep your fingers crossed he doesn't fumble the freaking ball. Otherwise, he's not going to get as many carries. But here's the other interesting thing. Since Josh Dobbs got there, Andrew, this Minnesota team has rushed the ball 34 times per game. So they are just absolutely committing to Madison. They're committing to Dobbs. They're committing to Chandler. So I get a team that rushes the ball 34, 35 times. I got to believe at least 13 of them are going to go to Madison. So I like Madison. And on the flip side, I don't know if Justin Fields is going to have a lot of success in yardage, maybe, but I love his over 9.5 rush attempts. The first game back from injury, he rushed it 18 times against the Lions. So obviously he doesn't have any fear of rushing the ball. And the game he got hurt in was against Minnesota. He only played half, and he had 8 rush attempts in that game. So he was almost over that just in the first half. So against Minnesota, he had 8 rushes for 46 yards. The rushing yard total is 52.5, I believe. I've seen 55.5 at the highest. So I'm not going to mess with the yards, but I do think Justin Fields is absolutely going to rush the ball over 9.5 times. And again, we see it with Philly when you're taking Jalen Hurts rush attempts. Those 3rd and 1, those 4th and 1 quarterback sneaks, they all count. If you get kneel downs, those count. So I love this rush attempts on Justin Fields. So I'm not going to mess with the yardage, but give me Madison over his attempts and also give me Justin Fields over his attempts. All right, guys, it is Cyber Monday. So we are running our Cyber Monday special. And this is coming off of the Thanksgiving special. We did our 7-day pass last week. It is a 90-day pass for this week's special, and it is marked down, guys. That's less than $7 a day. It gets you all plays, all percentages. We got college football bowl season coming up. We've got NBA. We've got NHL. We've got the rest of the NFL season. So any sport, any percentage, it is included, and it's less than $47 per week. That is an instant discount. You don't need a promo code. You just need to go to your favorite WagerTalk Handicappers profile page. Myself, really happy with the last 7 days. If you got the 7-day pass, you went 14-6. We're on a nice 6-1 run in the NFL, so seeing sports really, really well. This is the way to take advantage is when you get those long-term packages. Andrew and I talk about it all the time. If you get one play, it's tough to see how a handicapper is, but you get a 7-day pass, you get a 90-day pass, you get a really good feel for how the handicapper does write-ups, and you also get to catch those winning streaks instead of just depending on one play. So take advantage of that. It's at wagertalk.com. 90 days, all access, less than $47 per week. No promo code needed. Check it out at wagertalk.com. Works for any handicapper, but you got to jump on it. It is today only. Ends at midnight. So don't wait around. Grab it. That way you get all the plays today and moving forward for the next 90 days. All right, Andrew, let's get into some receiving props in this one. Vikings and Bears. My favorite prop is in this category, so I'm interested to see what you discovered in the receiving props.
This is the thing. I have a handful that I like, but there's not one that I love. And everything I'm really talking about today are kind of my favorite picks for the game. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to have a client play on this game. I might have one that I get to the window with. I have a lot that I like, but none that I love. And I've been very low volume with NFL prop bets. So I'll start things off with the one that I think you and I have been discussing for a long time now. And that's just the over on receptions for DJ Moore. I mean, you can talk about yards, but you can also just look at how many times the guy is being targeted, how often he's on the field. And really, this is the thing. When you have a guy that is pretty much the only trusted receiver for a quarterback, that's what you want to look at. You could look towards yards, but realistically, when you look down the list and you've got one guy getting 6, 7 receptions per game, and then you have the next closest guy with 3 or 2 receptions, this is the kind of guy that I want to look just towards his receptions, not towards his yards. I know he's going to get the targets. I know he's going to get the catches. So I don't really want to have to worry about what he's going to do after he catches that ball. I like Cole Kmet over his number. 7 of his last 10 games, he has gone over his receiving number, and it's only 36.5. And I mentioned some of these running backs that you can just take some discounts on with rushing plus receiving. But now that we're just talking receiving, how about we go under 11.5 yards for Alexander Madison? 7 of his last 11 games he's played overall, he's got under this number. Usually he gets about just 1 catch per game. And realistically, they're getting healthier. They've got a lot more weapons that they can be concerned about besides just him catching the ball and dump offs. And what I've realized is since Josh Dobbs has took over as the quarterback for the Vikings, they haven't really needed that guy to just toss the ball 2 yards to run. If they need somebody to run, Josh Dobbs is just doing it on his own. So they haven't really had to worry about that. Plus 140, Andy, for TJ Hawkinson to get in the end zone. I talked about Hill being someone that I wanted to get in, last time we were on the show together, but Hawkinson's actually had a quiet, great year. He's only found the end zone a couple times. He's only scored actually in 2 games this year. I feel like this is a good matchup for him to get in. I feel like the Bears have struggled a little bit against the tight end position, and the chemistry that Dobbs and Hawkinson have established, you really think that by now he'd actually probably have a couple more touchdowns under his belt with Dobbs, even though he's been finding him up during their drives, but he hasn't really been able to finish things off with him. So those are a couple that I like. And as far as I was looking at Mooney, I liked his over, but I just think that there might be too many. There's just too many passes going to Moore, and then a couple other guys get 1 or 2. And even though his number is 25.5, I just couldn't really get there to the window with him. So that's why I'm looking at receptions for DJ Moore, and for some of the other guys, I think I'd probably just look towards their yards because I'm not sure how often they're going to get the ball.
Yeah, I'm with you on DJ Moore. It's one of those, I don't know, it's kind of an obvious play, yeah, but with these big receivers who just get peppered with targets, these big name receivers just go over. So I'm with you on that one. I was pretty surprised to see TJ Hawkinson's longest reception is 20.5. He's gone over in 6 straight games. So he's a guy that can get big chunks. So I was pretty surprised because I was looking at his game log. I was like, wow, he's catching 25-yard passes every week. And then I looked, I was like, wow, his longest reception is only 20 and a half. So I think that one's worth a look. My favorite play in this game is Ty Chandler over 10 and a half receiving. And you brought it up with Alexander Madison that Madison's not really a threat to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's not, isn't real active. So I went back and looked at Ty Chandler's game log. So we go back to the 49ers game, and that was the game that Cam Akers got hurt in. So the next game we see Ty Chandler, and it's against New Orleans. Limited reps up until that point, I'm sure, with the team, and he has 0 catches for 0 yards against the Saints. However, the Saints are a top 5 defense defending receiving yards against running backs. They're really good. So the next week, what happens? He plays the Broncos, who are a bottom 8 team in allowing receiving yards, and he gets 4 catches for 37 yards. So now I'm trying to look at who's the worst team in the league at allowing receiving yards, and it is the Chicago Bears. They give up 63.2 yards receiving to running backs every game. I don't think it's going to be Madison getting catches. And this is one of those plays that I love that only one catch can do it. You could get a dump off screen and easily go for 12, 13 yards. But I love that he caught all 4 of his targets last week. They got to trust him a little bit more. He had a 19-yard catch last week. So I think if a running back is going to be catching passes, it's going to be Chandler. I was stunned to see this line this low. So my favorite play in this game is absolutely going to be Ty Chandler over 10.5 receiving. He can get it 1 catch. If he gets 2 or even 3, I think for sure he's going over. So receiving yards, I'm actually going for a running back in that game. So Andrew, before we get to props that we hope to see, tell everyone what you have up at WagerTalk.com and where we can find you at.
Yeah, I actually have a big play going in the NHL tonight, a 4% play. And as I mentioned, I'm still figuring out if I'm going to be in action tonight for football. But I do recommend you join me on a prop pack, as I've really upped my game with props, not only in NFL, obviously, but NHL and actually NBA as well, Andy. So especially with basketball, I like to wait a little bit, get some data, kind of see what's going on in the NBA first before I kind of jump in. And I'm certainly getting involved now. So as we always preach, those long-term packages are the way to go. And it's a 7-3 run for me last 10 all sports. So we're casually picking away here, and it's not just one sport; it's multiple sports we're heating up in.
Love it. Don't forget to get that 90-day pass, guys. It's good for today only. Go check it out at Andrew McGinnis's page at WagerTalk.com. 90-day all access, less than $47 per week. It gets you 90 days of all sports, all percentage. You can start today with that 4% play. Andrew and I totally believe in the low volume thing, and it's been working great for us. So take advantage of that. That way you're not overexposed with a ton of units every single day. It's quality over quantity. So that's one of the many things Andrew and I have in common. So lock in that 90-day all access page, less than $47 per week. No promo code needed. Grab it at myself or Andrew's profile page at WagerTalk.com. Andrew,
Andy,
you mentioned yes.
I was going to ask you, did you have many miscellaneous props? I didn't know if we were skipping over that, but did you have any?
Yeah, the one that I could look at that I could get to the window on is Vikings over 22.5. I wouldn't say it's the most solid play for me, but since Dobbs has been quarterback, they scored 31 against Atlanta, 27 against New Orleans. They only had 20 against Denver, but Denver's defense is just playing unbelievably good. What a turnaround for them. So the Bears, they can give up quarterbacks. Justin Fields can get in these shootouts, bottom 7 pass defense. I guess I just don't like that number, 22.5. It's a weird number. You need 3 touchdowns plus another field goal. So, you're asking a Vikings team to put up at least 3 touchdowns and then another score. So I don't know. It's a lean, but if I'm recommending to play something that I like, it's definitely Ty Chandler over the receiving. I'm guessing you have a miscellaneous prop.
Well, I saw you put it there, and I've actually gone away from this isn't that creative of a prop by any means, but I've gone away from the field goal props. But I was just looking over some trends, and I saw that Greg Joseph for the Vikings, 6 of his last 7 games, he's gone over 1.5 field goals, and actually in a handful of them, he had 3 or more. So their third down rate has not been good. How they're performing in the red zone, they've been turning opportunities to get 7 into 3 quite often. And when you look at that, that can really make or break a team. But you can look at kicking points, or you can look at field goals made or point after attempts. But when it comes down to it, over 1.5 field goals made is minus 125. So first of all, I always find it funny cheering on those props, because like you have a team driving the field and you like want them to drive the field, but then do really bad once they get to the closer. So, but yeah, I just found that was interesting. 6 of the last 7 games for him, so worth mentioning.
That's a great one and a really great price. Normally when you see those trends, they're down to minus 150. So yeah, if you can get that at minus 125, yeah, that's a really good price. And yeah, you are right. You're like hoping the other team plays a prevent defense until they get, it's like the 25-yard line. It's like, all right, let's tighten up, guys. Let's hold them here.
Play some good D. Yeah, play some good D.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Looking ahead to next week, we always want to get out ahead of the numbers. That way, when the lines come out, we know exactly where to look. So, Andrew, I'll start with one prop that we hope to see. And I have to give you congratulations. I think you used the reverse jinx on social media yesterday on Derrick Henry. Congratulations. It was a masterclass in the reverse jinx. You put out the tweet saying, darn it, this one's going to be a loss, but there was plenty of time in the game. He had a great matchup. And the key is you can't use your reverse jinx all the time. You have to pick and choose. Yeah. So Andrew did a great job. Derrick Henry gets over his rushing yards. And man, I hope they put out a number below 70 next week. I don't think they will, but it may just be you take Derrick Henry, and he's playing the Colts, and oh my God. Oh, Andrew, my Colts defense, what an absolute fade on the ground. Like, you just have to just take every running back for the rest of the season to go over. Last week I talked about Rachaad White over rushing and receiving, and I was like, he could do this in one category. Oh, he crushed it just with his rushing. I mean, they're so injured, they can't stop anybody. So I hope to get a good number on Derrick Henry. He should absolutely torch this Colts defense. What were some props that you were looking forward to and hoping that we get week 13?
And I'll just add to that with and I appreciate the kudos on the tweet there. But one thing I mentioned in the tweet that I think is, like, we always say we can learn from stuff when we're frustrated, is the attempts were there, right? So you talk about your Colts. I mean, it might just be a good idea to look towards attempts. You talked about rushing attempts today. I mean, what a feeling that would have been for me at halftime in that game for the Titans if I had his attempts. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy because when he usually gets like 10 to 13 attempts, he's already surpassing that number. Right? I would expect him to be at way more than 38 yards. That's why I chalked it up as a loss. But one guy I've got my eye on actually is Bijan Robinson. I like his matchup coming up here. And I just feel like Arthur Smith and the coaching staff are finally realizing that they drafted him for a reason. He's actually a good player. You might as well start utilizing him. And all the reports we read from the OC and the coaching staff in the offseason, and we talked about it when we were doing our player previews, was that they were going to have him line up outside, right? Act as a receiver in some games, Andy. Well, now I think they're kind of getting away from this creative play and just say, you're a running back. We're going to hand you the ball 13, 14 times, and you're going to put up some numbers here. So I know we talk about the Jets rush defense versus pass defense and things like that, but I just feel like at this point, it sounds funny to say, I think Bijan Robinson is actually going to be undervalued. I wouldn't look towards his rushing plus receiving, just the rushing. And I feel like he's going to get the opportunities and get the attempts. I gotta tell you, there's one game I've got my eye on for next week, and it's the biggest game of the season for me as a fan, and that's the Chiefs and Packers. I'm curious what Romeo Doubs' number is going to be receiving wise. He seems like he just kind of quietly just flies under the radar. You look at this young core on the receiving position for the Packers. There's no real superstars, right? I mean, Christian Watson obviously gets more attention from the media and just in general than Romeo Doubs does. But it seems like Doubs makes that like one big play every single game. He's actually stretching the field now. I'd be curious what his longest reception will be. Like, this is a good defense for the Chiefs, no doubt about it. But look what happened early in the game yesterday. Obviously, it was a huge run they went on, but the Raiders were able to catch them. And I feel like that you saw the Packers, the way they started their game against the Lions. Matt LaFleur said he wants to be more aggressive. He wants to be, less hesitant with the offense. And it feels like Jordan Love did better with that. It's almost like he kind of got loose a little bit. Like the chain was off him and he was able to kind of ball out and play the football he was used to playing. So I think Romeo Doubs is someone I'll have my eye on for next week.
Nice. I'm looking at all running backs. I think we get some great matchups. I want David Montgomery over his rushing total. I hope to get that around 70. Played on Thanksgiving, so he's going to get a few days extra rest. And this New Orleans team, they're being run on. The Falcons rushed 41 times for 228 yards on Sunday. Last week, Minnesota rushed for 33 times for 125. And that Lions offense, man, it's predictable, and they don't hide anything. Montgomery's going to pound and pound and pound, and Gibbs is going to be the change of speed back. So I really like Montgomery. He's been a really nice cash cow over the last, just ever since the season started, he's been going over his total. So I like that one. And then I talked about how bad the Colts rushing defense is. The Arizona Cardinals say, hold my beer. My gosh. 174 yards rushing per game the last three. 174. They play the Steelers. I think you could play Jalen Warren and Najee Harris over their totals. They both were around like 48, 47 yards this week. If they put those numbers out again, I think there's a good chance you go 2-0 just taking Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. I think 1-1 is the worst case scenario against this Arizona team. And we saw, we had the hype that Jalen Warren was going to be the starting back, but man, crunch time, that was Najee Harris running down the clock in the fourth quarter. So I think this Arizona team is pretty bad. The Steelers' path to victory is certainly not having Kenny Pickett throw the ball a ton, although it was encouraging to see them finally get to 400 yards. But this is a team that wants to run the ball, and they should have all kinds of success. So I would hope to get Jalen Warren and Najee Harris both over their rushing total. And if you're a same game parlay better, when those lines come out, you could probably get a really, really nice little payout on like maybe both of them to rush for 50 plus yards at plus money. So I would be looking at those. Do you have any
does
other
that correlate with Andy, does that correlate to you with the under stuff for the quarterbacks? Because I was looking at that as well, and I feel like you and I almost tell people we like an under for a quarterback sometimes by making fun of them, but we never actually say it. And if we like over for rushing props with the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, I mean, how often is he going to be throwing the ball? Maybe attempts under for him? Because I agree with you. And I think it actually is interesting to look at like kind of the updated list for the teams that aren't really good against the run. You got Denver in last, Jets, Arizona, Cincy, the Giants, Green Bay, Indianapolis, Las Vegas. Carolina is actually getting better slowly but surely. They were like dead last for the first handful of weeks. But one thing I want to start doing personally is looking at some of these teams and looking at if I like a running back and I want to expose that matchup, maybe they won't be throwing the ball as much. You know what I mean? So looking at the Falcons for their matchup against the Jets, looking at the matchup against Arizona with the Steelers, and some of these games you can look at and think, well, if I think they're going to run the ball quite a bit, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here on you, and we've forced too many plays, but I feel like that could be a good way of looking at it, looking at under attempts when you have a favorable rushing matchup. Because yesterday it actually would have worked, I think, for the Titans.
Well, we've got some time here, so I have this chart pulled up, but I think this is a great thing that a lot of people miss. So I have the opponent rushing yards per game averages. I have full season, and I have last 3 games. Let me tell you some teams that have made some massive, massive adjustments for better or for worse. So let's take a look at the Chargers. So for the season, they allowed 110.6 yards per game. Their last 3, though, 166. So they have gotten worse against the run, big time. We go down to the Raiders. For the season, 127 yards per game allowed. The last 3, 92. So they've made some big changes with their new coaching staff. I had always talked about how the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could run all over them. For the season, 118 yards allowed per game. Last 3, 79. So there's really, really big things that like the stat sheet doesn't tell you. Are there injuries? Were there coaching changes? Is it opponent based? Like, someone like the Dolphins, they put up those huge offensive numbers, but you look at who they played the first part of the year and it was cupcakes. So some of these numbers can be a little bit skewed. So even
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia is another one.
85 to 138.
Yes. Cleveland, 106 yards allowed for the season. Last three, 149. We were looking at this defense like this is an all-timer. You can absolutely run on them now. So, yeah, it's important to look at. Yeah, Philadelphia, 85 to 138. That may be the biggest one on here. So, like, when you're looking at these props, like, looking at season is good, but you have to look at a smaller sample size a lot of times and say, well, what's going on in the last 3 games? What's going on in the last 5 games? Who's injured? What changes were there on the coaching staff? So, looking at season stats is one thing, but you got to look at what's happened recently and get a nice little combination of the two. So, yeah, and you could do that with all categories. You could look passing defense, receiving defense. Just take a look at what's going on with these teams. So, yeah, very interesting. And then I'll throw one more prop that I think we got to look at. That's Joe Mixon under his rushing. That Cincinnati Bengals. Oh man, Browning is a little bit of a rough watch. Like, I think I saw. What did I see? Jamar Chase had 4 catches and 2 of them were deflections. Like he had 2 catches that should not have been completions on there. And Mixon's playing the Jaguars, who are better against the run than they are against the pass. And I mean, we saw the Steelers. We're just going to take away Joe Mixon and make Browning beat us. Joe Mixon had 8 carries for 16 yards. So that'll help the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, that'll help the Steelers average on defense. Yeah. So I think the Jaguars, it's pretty clear. You take away Mixon, you say, all right, Browning, you go ahead and beat us. So
Andy, one more point I wanted to add, and this goes towards all sports, is I'm a big believer in home and road splits. I don't know how you feel about them, but whether it's NFL, NHL, NBA, I've noticed like you can find some strong trends, and these are professional athletes. I mean, when you're talking about NHL and NBA, it's the same environment, but at least in the NFL, you've got a Miami Dolphin player used to the nice weather, goes towards a colder, part of America, and they play worse maybe, or different things like that. But there are some splits that are just absolutely dominant that you just cannot ignore. And we've talked about a few of them on Puck Time as well, where players just play better on the road or play better at home. Like, I always find it funny when some players just play their best basketball on the road. It's like the home fans never get to see them have a triple-double, but when they go on the road, they play their best game. But when you look at these categories, as you mentioned, looking at the full season has almost become just useless now, because you could look at a full season and their averages could have really all drawn in from the first 3 or 4 games. But you're still excited and handicapping based on that average, not the last 3 games or 4 or 5. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I actually think that it's something people think it's a myth or, it doesn't actually add value. I completely think it is important to look at how a player performs at home versus on the road.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 just in the NBA. I mean, it's a prop show. We do this in all sports. I mean, you want to look at DeMar DeRozan. This year he's scoring 19 points on the road and 23 at home. And the books always put his point total at 20.5 or 21.5, like right in the middle. So it's like, is he at home? Take the over. Is he on the road? Okay, well, we're taking them in. And then the crazy one this year is Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's averaging 18 points on the road and 13 at home. He's just not getting it done at home, but on the road, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe if the pressure's off, he just plays a lot better. So you're right. Take a look at those home road splits. And they're not applicable to every single player, every single team, but you only need 1 or 2. I mean, like if you've been playing DeMar DeRozan over his point total at home and under on the road, you probably have a pretty sick record. You probably have cashed quite a few of them. Klay Thompson the same way. If you're like, you know what, I'm just taking him under a home, and they're all over the place. But you only need to find a couple of them to consistently play. Now the key is you got to consistently play them to keep cashing them. You can't. Well, I'm going to try this one. I'm going to try this one. So, but yeah, the home road splits is absolutely good. So, all right, guys. Andrew, do you have any other props for next week, or I think we covered all of them, right?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. We'll be ready for Friday, though. We'll have quite a few to look at and break down. And this time it'll be a little bit different because we won't have any, several games on Thursday with kind of the change of the schedule last week. It'll be a ton to go over this week.
I like the Friday game. I sneakily really liked having a Friday game. I know it was after a holiday, But I wonder what they would do. I wonder what it would be like if they had an NFL game on a Friday evening on just a regular week. I thoroughly enjoyed having that one. So I didn't think I would, but I really did. So, all right, guys, one more time, hit the like button, leave us a comment, and tell us what your favorite bet is for tonight. And once again, guys, last day for the Cyber Monday 90-day pass. No promo code needed. Just go to Andrew's profile page or my profile page on WagerTalk.com. Lock in 90 days of all sports, all percentages. Get you these plays for less than $7 a day. A smoking deal. It ends at midnight. So don't waste any time. Get your plays locked in for today. Andrew's got a 4% best bet that is up. I've got a 3% best bet that is up today. Get that promo and you'll be locked in for tonight. That is going to do it for us on Prop It Up. Good luck on all your bets. We will see everyone on Friday to break down the weekend of NFL games from the props market. Good luck on all your plays, and we will see everyone on Friday on Prop It Up.